it's a time of changes. Now is the time to move on. This is the time for solutions. Feel the motion. Be new is born. The enemy none of you. No one connected to you. The enemy none of you. Be new will do it for you. This is the time for solutions. Be new is for you.
Buenas tardes de nuevo. Me gusta esta canción porque dice Be New is Born y realmente también desde la logística, desde este kilómetro cero, empieza todos nuestros paneles que tenemos en los platós distribuidos por toda Barcelona. Bien, seguimos hablando de logística y ahora queremos volver un poco a los orígenes o un poco a la reflexión que nos ha llevado la pandemia de la COVID-19. Por lo tanto, volvamos a la regionalización viniendo de un modelo globalizado. ¿Cómo lo podemos conseguir todo esto? Pues, por ejemplo, con políticas arancelarias que no paguen tanto al empresario final, con unas cadenas de valor globales óptimas y eficientes para el empresario. O, por ejemplo, impulsando un entorno a nivel regional óptimo para mejorar las habilidades de los trabajadores manuales. Ahora hablábamos con el moderador de la sesión, el señor Roger Albiñana, entendido como aquella especialización en un sector, pero no ligado al gremio, ¿no?, que antiguamente relacionábamos todos. Bien, ahora hablaremos de este nuevo panel. Lo haremos en inglés. El título que lleva es International and Mediterranean Value Chain from Globalization to Regionalization. Bienvenido, Roger. Ahora nos presentarás a todos tus invitados que llevas para hablar de ello. Roger Albiñana es Managing Director of the European Institute of the Mediterranean. También ha sido director de la Mediterranean Regional Policies and Human Development de la IEMED y actualmente es profesor de la Universidad de Barcelona. Currículum amplio que dará para 60 minutos y quizás un poquito más. Bien, pues nada, seguimos. El panel todo tuyo, Roger, desde la antigua fábrica Estrella Damm, y recordamos un Biniu organizado por el Consorci de la Zona Franca de Barcelona. Adelante, gracias.
Well, thank you so much, Nuria, and I'd like to start by expressing my gratitude to the Zona Franca Consortium. As the presenter announced, we will now look into how in the Mediterranean region companies, people are inserting or not into global and regional value chains. You know that the question of inserting or not being inserted into both global or regional value chains are in fact two coins or two sides of the same coin. And here in the Mediterranean region, we do have some large disparities between what is happening in the northern shore or in the northern economies of the Mediterranean region and what is happening in the south. It is true that we have some push factors that have actually pushed the region into a more international and regionalized environment. We could mention the US-China trade war, which affected the whole trade flow across the globe. We could also mention the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the struggle against climate change, which is more severe in the Mediterranean region. And we could even mention a certain policy alignment at the multilateral and national levels, which actually helps us to foresee a certain trend towards these more regionalized and internationalized economies. But in the negative downsides, we can also mention the absence of a real integration from an economic perspective in aspects so important for these domains, such as transport and logistics, or as the presenter Nuria was mentioning, a certain lack of human capital formation. Well, all these aspects will be discussed by our outstanding speakers today. I will not be speaking. I was giving a short introduction, but now I will present you the speakers, and I will pass the floor to them. First of all, I believe from the UK, she's in remote. We have our colleague, Dr. Marise Louise, who is the general manager of the FEMIS network, which is an EU Mediterranean think tank that gathers more than 100 members institutes from the north and the south of the Mediterranean. Dr. Louise received her PhD in economics from Aix and Marseille University in France, and we are very happy that you could join us, even if it's in remote. And I have a first question for you, which is, what are the main steps that northern and southern Mediterranean countries should undertake to create more agile supply chains? Maris, welcome. The screen is yours, as we often say.
Thank you, Roger. I'm really happy to be joining you in this very high level conference and to address this very important issue that we all face. As you rightly said in the introduction, there is a lot of opportunities that have been missed, and maybe the pandemic will give the chance for a more elaborate relationship between the South Mediterranean countries and Europe, because everybody's now are rethinking their agendas, setting up their priorities, and the idea of a nearshoring could be one solution to enhance this relationship between the EU and the South Mediterranean partners as we go towards a business unusual scenario, which I like this term. So the South Mediterranean have a lot to benefit if they are more integrated in the regional supply chain with Europe, because they have this will enhance their economies, as mentioned or estimated by the World Development Report. An increase of 1% in the global value chain participation can boost economic growth by 1%, which is great, and this is exactly what the South Mediterranean partners need. So this could be golden opportunities for the South Mediterranean countries to take advantage of this nearshoring idea and to present themselves as potential new partners to the EU, replacing the distant partners from Southeast Asia like India and China, etc. So, in order to do that, there are some obstacles. Of course, the South Mediterranean partners have already some advantages because of their proximity with Europe, because of the low labor cost, even compared to China now. But there are some obstacles that relate to the institutional framework, limitation in the EU trade agreements, ability to comply with the EU standards. But they do still have a chance, and this is because they have like the basics needed to implement this, to be part of this supply chain. In a very recent study, we're just going to publish with our partners CMI, they found out, the author, that there is a common good list of intermediate products, meaning that these are products that are imported by the EU from distant developing countries, and it is exported at the same time by the Mediterranean partner countries. So there is a potential here that can be seized. This is very represent a small percentage for the South Mediterranean, but this could be enhanced. So answering your questions, Roger, I think the best, there are a few steps that needs to be done to help, this integration taking a different aspect. So from the EU side, the agreements between the EU and the Mediterranean partners needs to be more inclusive, to include private sector, to include the business, to include SMEs, to include youth, because they have the potentials of being more creative, more innovative, and to take the competitive advantage of the South Mediterranean countries in the agriculture and the services sector, which, as you know, is not part of the agreements yet. Trade negotiation needs to be go hand in hand with industrial policies. they need also to provide some technical assistance to help the South Mediterranean countries to comply with the standards. And of course, investment from the EU needs to be beyond the oil sector. So it needs to go, more job generating sectors. And from the EU side, similarly, they need to improve their legal framework. They need to have a better competition policies and a better industrial policy.
Thank you, Maurice. You actually gave a very comprehensive answer to the question I asked. And I will retain these proposal to push for nearshoring. I mean, this is an attractive proposal which has been up in the air for some time now to promote nearshoring of production and relocation of production into the Southern Med. I'm sure that we will have a chance to discuss about this point, with the aim at the end to counter the low levels of global value chain participation. We know that not only the Southern Mediterranean countries, but the Arab region at large is the less integrated region in the world, and therefore the less integrated into global value chains too. Let's now move to our second speaker, who is representing the more institutional side. So we had first a speaker representing the academy, and now more the institutional side, the Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean, which is the intergovernmental organization whose headquarters are based here in Barcelona and promotes all kind of regional cooperation in various sectorial domains. Hamed Eletrevi, I think I pronounced it well. Hamed Eletrevi joined the UFM Secretariat in January 2018 as a senior economic advisor at the Economic Development and Employment Division. He's been seconded by the government of Egypt, where he has held several positions previously, but his last position before coming to Barcelona and joining the UFM Secretariat was as Chief of Cabinet of the Minister of Trade of the government of Egypt. So Hamed, we're very happy to have you on board, even though you didn't have to travel from Egypt, but we are very happy. And I have a very specific question for you, which is, which are the main sectors that could be involved in these new regionalized supply chains that actually Maurice was evoking?
Thank you very much, Roger, and thank you for inviting me to this very timely event that tackles an extremely important issue of the reconfiguration of the value chains and the regional value chains. Before reaching the level of the sectors that we think would be important in this matter, I would just like to say a few words on some facts that shape the way the value chains look in the region, in the Mediterranean region. So the fact that now we're in a crisis, not only a humanitarian one, but also a digital one with the COVID and with the digital technology. The challenges that we face, we don't have a one-size-fits-all answer. In order for us to strengthen the regional value chains, we should agree that we should be working to hedge against vulnerabilities and reducing the transaction costs between the transactions of the countries of the regions. For that to happen, we need to build a horizontal and a vertical linkage which would help achieve economies of scale and improve the competitiveness of the countries. And this takes me to the next level that you've all mentioned correctly, which is the deficit in the regional integration in the region and the very low level of integration in the South-South relations between the Mediterranean countries. This comes to various reasons. Maurice also just said it now, but I want to tackle two things. First, the agreements. The various agreements sometimes is an obstacle for the member states between whether the European Union and the Southern Shore. I will give an example. We have an Agadir agreement. All of them, all of the 4 member states and the two other member states who recently joined, Lebanon and Palestine, they have a preferential agreement among them for the exports of the EU. However, the utilization rate of this agreement doesn't reach the expectations of what could be done and what could be achieved through this agreement. And this is exactly why, in my opinion, these agreements need to be revisited in order to be updated with the current needs that the region necessitates in this current situation. The second thing is the framework of the legal framework of trade in services. We always hear about trading goods, but trade in services, as also was mentioned by my predecessor intervener, that also in the region, this lacks presence. There is a difference between having the capacity to manufacture and having the capacity to have what I manufacture on the shelves of the country, of the other country to which I want to export. And here takes us to the logistical value chain, to the transport, to the road, to all the service value chain that leads to this. Now, speaking about the sectors themselves. From the trade statistics, there has been also a little bit of a shift from the traditional products that used to be exported from the south to the north, fuel, oil and fuel, and oil and gas, to more industrial products, including pharmaceuticals, including textiles and ready-made garments, and agricultural products. However, again, without the legal framework which would allow the smooth incorporation of the southern countries with the rest of the European Union, this will hardly happen. One thing that I would like to stress is that the countries which will reap the benefit of reshoring are the countries who would have the flexibility to adjust their manufacturing and diverse their manufacturing base to be able to accommodate what is needed from the other countries to which they will supply. I will take the example of Egypt and Morocco, for example, and the utilization rate of the trade agreements they have among them, exporting to Europe as well. What we do at the UFM Secretariat, leading to my last point on this, we have produced, thanks to our collaboration with the OECD, our first regional integration report in the UFM region, which tackles 5 dimensions of regional integration: trade, finance, movement of people, infrastructure, and investment. This report is its first of its kind because it's the first one that tackles the region, and there is a second one that would explicitly tackle the reshoring issue. And we are going to make sure that all what have been included in that report in terms of policies would be taken in our policy recommendations through our ministerial meetings and the different forums that we undertake. So it's going to be a tour d'horizon in order to be able not only to take stock of what the report recommends, but also to be able to have these policy recommendations applied in the future. So this is, in a nutshell, my views on this, and I would be happy to take it further after my fellow panelists would also cover their points. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hamed. You actually touch upon very relevant topics. I will retain that there is a need because, of course, the legal framework is somehow outdated. So there is a need to update a number of trade agreements, bilateral, multilateral trade agreements, which do not respond to the current needs, and in particular to include the issue of trade services, because This is somehow the part of the training of services is somehow excluded from most of them. Then you also mentioned something very important, the need to adjust and adapt. How can these countries adjust and adapt in an easier and quicker way so that they can capture the opportunity of being inserted into global, first global, and later into regional value chains. I'm sure we will have time to continue discussing that. And now we move on with our next speaker, and we are very happy to introduce Clara Gitroy, correct, who is the Secretary General and co-founder of the Euro-Mediterranean Arab Association, EMA. And in her work, she encourages political decision makers and business leaders to view North Africa and the Middle East as a region of opportunities for cooperation. So she does good work, but it's good to have a view, a more academic view than a more institutional view. And now we move into more practitioner, because you know exactly and you work directly with business leaders. I have, Clara, if you allow me, I have a specific question for you. Would regionalization allow to involve a larger number of small and medium-sized enterprises, both in the northern and southern shore of the Mediterranean? This is a very relevant question because, as you know, 95% of all companies, especially in the southern Med, are MSMEs, is what we call micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. And these are normally the ones that not only have difficulties to access to funding, but they also have difficulties to be international, to go international. So please.
Indeed. Thank you so much for having me. Since I'm from Berlin and in Germany, working a lot with the German SMEs, wishing to invest and to have corporations with North Africa and the Middle East, I really know about this issue because in Germany, as in many parts of Europe and North Africa, SMEs are the backbone of the economy. And of course, it's always a duty of showing not only the challenges, but the opportunities. When we talk about regionalization, I mean, we can already start in Europe to enhance the situation and the exchange. And we were already talking about the lack of regional integration in the Mediterranean itself. So looking at the numbers, with estimated decrease of trade by 40% and also the drop of the oil price, we just need to react. From my German member companies, I can say they are not suffering from COVID as such. The books are full. They really could produce and fulfill their obligations, but there's lack of supply chains from China mainly. So there's a lot of discussion. So how can we fulfill our work, and which could be the solutions? And I feel there's a lot more we need to do and we have to do, and I can just estimate it's similar in other European countries, that we will have to increase awareness about a region of opportunities, as you said, because of course we have challenges, but we have many reasons of investing and collaborating with our neighboring countries in the south. We, as EMA, this is our raison d'être, to really bring up partnerships between SMEs, namely, okay? And I will be happy to provide more insights in your next question.
Thank you so much, Clara. You touch upon an important, relevant subject, which is a disruption in supply chains, which is not only affecting the southern shores, it's affecting the whole world. We could say we are seeing it with a rapid spike in terms of prices and the problems that we are experiencing in many different countries. So, of course, more as a phenomenon which is happening as a result of the COVID-19, hopefully, and that we will be able to resolve in the near future. We move on to our last speaker, and we are also very happy to welcome her. She's Véronique Elie, and she has a very extensive CV, which I don't have the time to read, but what I can say is that since 2013 up till now, she's affiliated to Afil Logistics, so this is a logistical company based here in El Prat de Llobregat, near Barcelona. And she started her career in Alfil Logistics as a multimodal sales executive. And then she headed the creation of the customer support department, assuming the functions of responsibility for this department. So we're very happy to have you here, and I have a very specific question for you to start with, which is how should logistics adapt to the new technologies and new consumers' needs, and which are the main means involved in this process of adaptation? So thank you.
For the introduction. Well, as regards the new technologies we are talking about, it's a very huge camp because logistics touches and needs a lot of different technologies, from information technologies to the digitalization to new technologies in vehicles. So it's very huge. I really think logistics should use all these new technologies as an evolution and modernization lever. And this is becoming a strategic and a competitive asset for them. Today we live in a very globalized, extremely globalized society at economic and production level, and this means that all the logistics, all the supply chains today for almost any kind of item we can get are very complex cross-border transactions, which involve lots of players and lots of modalities in transport. And this is very complex. The complexity is to get what the customer needs today, the new needs of customers are that of information, of transparency over the value chains, and also that of agility and reliability. We have just spoken of shortages and really big problems to get the products where they have to be on time. And the last one, but not the least, is the increasing demand for environmental concern, environmental measures that would make the supply chains and logistics in general more eco-friendly. Okay. So the fact is that today the supply chain needs to be connected. As I said before, any item passes through a complex cross-border transaction and even at logistics level, and there are several players which are not very well connected between them. So we also have disruptions in the information during the supply chain. Digitalization is obviously a good evolution lever, okay. And then there is a lack of collaboration too. We should, the world of logistics should be more collaborative. Today there is a fierce competition between all the players, and in order to reach the visibility, the transparency, and the complete traceability of goods, it is important that all companies, all players play together and manage to put the information forward, I think.
Thank you, Veronique. May I ask you a question which is connected to what you were just saying? Do you think that all these elements that you mentioned, the environmental constraints, the supply chain constraints, all of these is heading us towards a more regionalized world or not? From your own experience as a practitioner in the logistics sector.
Yes.
So are we moving towards there, or is just, because I see a lot of debate for the last 2-3 years, especially in the policy making area. There's a lot of debate, but I see little action. concrete action, realization of that debate. So I want to hear your view, because you come from really from the sector, and perhaps you are seeing it happen, or perhaps not.
Well, regionalization, my opinion, is that it could be a good alternative to globalization to reach the new customers' needs thanks to the new technologies, okay? Because if we look at the environmental point only, if any item that is produced in the world has to travel several thousands of kilometers before it arrives on a shelf, definitely this is complicated to combine with CO2 reductions campaigns. So obviously regionalization would allow to shorten the supply chains and help in this field. As regards the fact that it is already launched or not, I'm not sure I could answer this question. There is a real need to find alternatives to the present configuration of the supply chains, but I would not be able to say if it is already working or already being set to sail. I don't know.
Okay. One thing that we can clearly see, those that work in the region, especially with southern Mediterranean countries, as our dear panelists have already stated, is that this is not yet the case in the southern Med. So now my question, I'm looking at both Maurice and Hamid to ask the important question. If you had to pick two measures that you would enforce in the region. We know that in the region, the level of integration is scarce, so you would have to go country by country, but imagine that you can enforce it in the region. In order to foster this regionalization, and therefore that we can see nearshoring of production, relocation of, Italian, French, Spanish companies, Portuguese companies relocating production to Morocco, Tunisia. We know that, for instance, Morocco and Tunisia are more advanced than Egypt and Algeria when it comes to GBC participation in global value chains. But what are these two policy measures that you would really push? Hamid, you are the first because you are the institutional one, so you have to answer first, and then Maurice.
Thank you very much, Roger. Excellent question. The first answer that would come to my mind is, one, the regulatory framework. What I mean by the regulatory framework, because countries, unfortunately, they are always afraid of adopting new regulation by thinking that this is going to be burdensome on them, or that private sector would not be able to adapt. But the fact is that whenever we are going to wait for this, as long as we are going to wait for this, the private sector will never be ready to adapt to any regulation that would be imposed or that the government would necessitate in order to upgrade the economies. And hence, of course, they will always be afraid of competition. But the thing is that regulation is not a mean of putting a burden. It's just a mean of attracting the direct investments that could help in achieving the goals needed to the value chains and reshoring and so forth. Because business environment is also an important aspect that would make any company think and take the decision of relocating their businesses to our countries. Because China, when Clara was giving the example of China, if now I am a firm in Europe, an enterprise in Europe, but still the business is difficult to conduct in X country in the southern Mediterranean, I would keep on doing what I was doing. What would attract me is the regulation enough to attract the business. The second thing is what I have previously mentioned, is the upgrade of the institutional framework that the countries have with their partner countries in in a way that it would adopt new measures that would be aligned with the current era in which we're living. For example, having clauses and having articles related to investment, sustainable trade, environment, climate issues. All of these issues need to be tackled in a more comprehensive way, and the countries should open up in discussing them. As long as we, and here I'm speaking with my Egyptian hat, in Southern Mediterranean countries, we are afraid of tackling these new issues, if we shall consider them new, there will be no progress.
Excellent answer. Maurice, before I give you the floor, or I give you the screen, I have now received a question from the audience, which is kind of related with you because it clearly refers to a report from FEMIS. Constantin is saying, in reaction to the very interesting presentation by FEMIS, I could not agree more that there is a potential for a large-scale reshoring policy, rather than reshoring, I think nearshoring from the EU, by including the neighboring countries and in particular the Med countries. Also in the perspective of the African continental free trade area. It would also bear the advantage of better positioning European companies with regards to sub-Saharan African markets. So basically they are supporting your, the work that you are doing. Maurice, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Roger. Well, it's here an echo. Okay, yeah, that's better. So yeah, it's difficult to be the second one talking because Hamid obviously.
He took the good ones, but I'm sure you also have good ones to take.
Oh yeah, I could think of other things to complement actually what he said. And I'm thinking of the investment climate, which he mentioned as part of the regulatory framework. And I think investment, encouraging the EU to invest in the Mediterranean countries. We are going with the nearshoring idea. Then the EU will have all the, how do I say it, like all the interest in investing in the South Mediterranean countries to be able to re-export the intermediate goods to them. So it's very important that they encourage the investment of the EU outside the oil sector and to generate jobs, etc. The second thing I would add is the importance of the national industrial policies. So each country has its own national industrial policy. It has to be aligned with more regional perspective. We talked about the South-South integration, and here I would like to add that not only the South-South integration and Agadir is not working well, but also there is another study that we are looking at, is that South-South integration actually integrated through Southern Europe. So even, Morocco and Tunisia are integrated because of their links to Europe in this regional value chain. So that goes back to the idea, if we have a better integration between North and South, we will have a better integration South-South as well. Adding to this, what was mentioned as a comment, it will also increase the possibility to link with Africa. Of course, after the African continental free trade area, which is expected to boost trade by 50% within the African continent. This is another important opportunity for the EU to invest in the Mediterranean, being now like even better hub between the two continents. This could place Mediterranean countries in a better position globally and regionally.
Excellent. Well, very good. I actually have a more specific question for Clara, because you only answered one question, so I had to ask you a second one, which is, how would regionalization allow to reduce the regional carbon footprint? So let's go more into specific, tricky questions.
Yeah, a very good one. You have to know, we just had our climate elections in Germany. Mm-hmm. The world is looking now at Glasgow and the COP26, where very ambitious carbon reductions are being plan for implementation. So there is no way out of working on the carbon footprint for anyone. And yes, when I look into the projects that I am working on, I feel that this carbon footprint is also related, of course, to our topic of today, namely the supply and the value chains. And when I think about the value chains, it's also all about human beings, right? So it's not only to produce one good and bring it from A to B, but it's also the whole, added value bringing to one country. And I feel that it's there where we need to start to work on. Because we really have to see, we were talking about SMEs before, how can they implement those ambitions? Yeah? We have in Germany a new supply chain act where also environmental aspects and human rights play a big role. And it is really hard for some SMEs to cope with that. They're complaining all the time, but there's some lack of understanding, and I feel we should really work with the people, with the company, with the governments, all together in order to find perfect solutions. And this is what I'm currently doing with the federal government of Germany, and preparing really for the workforce of the future. And we work on digital technologies in Tunisia, sustainable agricultural production in Morocco, also purchasing and supply chains, and there we really need to have more actions and concerted action in order to make this, to stop the climate change and to bring forward these new technologies. We talked about disruption before, and now it's time to move to more climate-friendly solutions. I mean, last point, maybe, if you allow a last point.
Please go ahead.
It's also the question, I don't know, I have seen the forests burning this summer all over the Mediterranean, and
especially
really,
in the eastern part, but also in the western.
Yeah, it really touched me, and I think it's really also important to think about how to protect also this beautiful landscape in the Mediterranean, talking about regionalization. I think common action is needed, and therefore I'm also preparing for more programs in investing in forests, because it's also there where you can really have an impact on the carbon reduction and saving the emissions in the floor. Yes.
Well, thank you. If we speak about another aspect that has been put on the table, but maybe we didn't have the chance to deepen into it, but if we speak about the human capital formation part, do you think that the Mediterranean region as a whole, I mean, I would not necessarily make a distinction between north and south of the Mediterranean, even though there are differences, but there are problems everywhere. Do you think that the Mediterranean economies are endowed properly with the necessary skills? I mean, people are trained and well trained in order to respond to the possible demand in case this nearshoring happens in the near future.
Question to me?
For instance,
yes.
But question open to
I would say
everybody.
yes and no. There's always a clear answer possible. I wish I would speak like four languages, as many Mediterranean people do. At the same time, since we're talking about new economies all over, we need to review our workforce. Same issue, as I said, in SMEs. And if we take the digital example, there's a lot of software solutions and a lot of solutions, but who is implementing them? So it's, to my opinion, very important to have a lot of on-the-job training and to work with the middle management of the companies in order to really have the implementation being done. And this is the challenge.
You. Please, very short, because...
Very short, very quickly, if I might just respond quickly to this. It's a role that is divided between the public, which is the governments, and the private sector. There are a lot that is being done. including what is needed for the skills for the future, because many of the jobs that we have now are going to be obsolete in a matter of few years.
20 years.
Absolutely, and maybe less. So it's a mutual work that needs to be undertaken from the private sector and the government. This is just quickly to say, but whether we are prepared or not yet. This is in my opinion.
Excellent. With these comments, I think that we will move to an end because I've been advised to close this wonderful debate. Of course, there are many challenges at this present moment and challenges that will come, so we could continue discussing about this very interesting and at the same time relevant topic of how we make the Mediterranean region become more international, more on the one hand international by inserting companies into global value chains, but at the same time how we also join this regionalization of globalization process, which in a way tries to make the Mediterranean region more integrated, more like a region, like what it is. So we could continue discussing, but I would like to thank Maryse, Hamed, Clara and Veronique for very interesting insights and for very interesting reflections, and to thank the organizers for this opportunity. I think Nuria is now taking over, and I will say goodbye with this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. An interesting presentation, debate. Yeah, to be able to understand the successful model of logistics. Thank you, Clara Gutierroy, Hamed Teletrevi, Veronique Lee, Maryse Luis, and Roger Albiñana. Muchas gracias, Roger, por acompañarnos desde este BNew, desde el canal Logistics, que nosotros ahora lo que haremos es conectar con el segundo Inspirational Talk de este miércoles. Lo hacemos porque estamos en la antigua fábrica Estrella Damm, pero si no cambiáis de canal, seguiremos con un Inspirational desde otro plató. Recordamos, ya que tenemos un poquito de tiempo, todos los patrocinadores, los sponsors que nos acompañan en este BNew Barcelona New Economy Week. Impulsamos la nueva economía. AMB, Agencia de Desenvolupament Econòmic, la Generalitat de Cataluña, también Renfe, importantísimo la conexión ferroviaria, ya lo hemos visto también en la primera sesión, ¿no?, con la importancia de conectar los puertos, y también con Cave Home y Barcelona Centre de Disseny, que llevan a cabo todo el mobiliario, sobre todo desde la zona franca de Barcelona. Bien, nosotros hacemos esta pausa, os dejamos con un Inspirational Talk a cargo de Marta Romo. Ella es socia de BIAP y hará un Be Inspired en neurociencia para el liderazgo. Desde este canal mismo, como os decíamos antes, tenéis el Inspirational Talk de 60 minutos. Y nosotros volveremos después para ya tomar la recta final de este día y hablar en clave de futuro qué logísticas, qué modelos logísticos nos presentan hasta la fecha del 2030 más o menos, aunque aquí hemos hablado de cambios a 20 años, con fechas marcadas en el 2040, creo que eran los cambios que se había marcado el Port de Barcelona. Volvemos en 60 minutos. Gracias.